Who are the top 5 heels in pro wrestling today? I got 5 plus an honorable mention here. So 6 names that we want to get to for the top 5 heels in pro wrestling today. Starting at number 5. This guy could easily be higher on this list. This guy could be completely off the list, depending on who you ask. But I think Drew McIntyre deserves some credit here. This has been the best run, in my opinion, of his career. And the only title that he's held was for 5 minutes and some odd seconds at WrestleMania 40. He is almost an anti-hero thing going right now where he believes he's right. And for the most part, he is right. In the build up to WrestleMania 40, he kept telling Seth Rollins, you need to worry about me. You need to not worry about The Rock. You need to not worry about Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes and his story. You need to focus on me, only to fall into the same trap with CM Punk. The storytelling those two put on last year was great. It was one of the feuds of the year, but Drew was the heel, and he continues to be the heel. The next iteration of that was he's going after everybody from the bloodline. Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, and now his attention seems to have shifted a little bit more. I'm a little worried about where he goes at Mania because it seemed like they were going to run something with him in the bloodline, considering the way that he was going after them week in and week out from the Raw on Netflix debut through the Rumble. But there is growing interest in him versus LA Knight. And I think LA Knight is somebody who needs to go up against a true heel. And I think this is where Drew McIntyre can go from the anti-hero to the full-on heel, because everybody likes LA Knight. I talked about it last week. It feels like he's lost some momentum. This is the type of feud that gets LA Knight back on track going into WrestleMania. We didn't know what they had for him, and it might have been something as inconsequential as a messed up and a botched spot in the Royal Rumble, but it might have created a really good feud going into Mania that's going to help LA Knight, and that's going to cement Drew McIntyre for the heel that he has been trying to be over the last 2 years. I think he's one of the best in the business right now. He certainly is utilizing social media in a way that a lot of wrestlers aren't. He's usually utilizing really everything at his disposal. He's doing some of the best mic work that we've seen in his entire career. He isn't getting the reactions that you'd want from a true blue heel, but he's doing a really good job. And I think because of that, to me, he's one of the top heels in the business right now. I put him at number 5. At number 4, a lot of people aren't going to like this, but Logan Paul. The dude is hated for so many reasons. And at the end of the day, if you're a heel in this business, your goal is to be hated. He was hated the second he walked into WWE, so he's just built on that so well. And I understand people are going to say, well, it's cheap heat. It's just heat because people just hate him as a human. Good. Some people have to work to be hated as human beings in this industry. He is just hated, and he plays into it so well. He debuted that new finisher on Monday. I'm not quite sure how well he's going to be able to do that against people that aren't 5'7" like Rey Mysterio, but it looked really cool. It's much cooler than just doing Big Show's big punch, right? His titanium reinforced wrist being able to knock people out. That's not a great finisher, especially for somebody that has the athletic ability of Logan Paul. So he gets a new finisher. It looks crazy. And he's somebody who, no matter where they're at, no matter who he's in the ring with, he is the most hated person in WWE, bar none. The question becomes, I'll get to that in a minute. Number 3, the first time I'm going to mention AEW in 4 weeks on the show. I promise you, I do watch AEW, just hasn't been much to talk about. Well, there's going to be a lot to talk about when you're talking about some of the top heels, because I think they have 2 of the top 3 heels in wrestling right now. Starting at number 3, Ricochet. If you're a WWE fan and you're not paying attention to what Ricochet is doing in AEW, you're missing out. Because you might think, well, Ricochet wasn't all that great in WWE. He's a tremendous in-ring talent, but he's not great on the mic. He doesn't have much good character work. And he's just flat out not interesting unless he's wrestling. All of that has changed. He's changed the narrative on that tenfold since joining AEW. He's been doing great work. And it's all on that forgotten hero angle that they talked about last week leading into his match with Swerve Strickland. Him saying, I came back to AEW, or I came into AEW, and people looked up to me like a superhero. And all of a sudden, he got forgotten about. He was just another face. He was just another good guy in a company full of some of the biggest names who are good guys in the sport. Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, names like that. So Ricochet felt like he was disrespected, felt like he should have been the hero of everybody's story, and gets forgotten about. And I think the way that they've been able to utilize that to push his new character forward has been great. All the bald chants are absolutely hilarious, and he's playing into it really well. Getting toilet paper thrown at him at Hammerstein Ballroom, that entire match was great. The Continental Classic performances that he had was great. Bringing in now the scissors in his rivalry and his feud with Swerve Strickland, and then his new finisher as well, you know, sensing a little bit of a theme here, is very, very good for his new heel persona. Because, yeah, he does all the high-flying stuff, and he does it at some of the best and the highest levels of anybody in wrestling. But having a finisher that is just elbowing somebody in their face, that to me has just been the cherry on top to this new edition of Ricochet. And he's doing some of the best work that I've seen him do in a very long time. And honestly, probably better work than he was able to do in WWE in his entire 6-7 year stint with that company. So I love what he's doing. And when you talk about people who have benefited from going through the forbidden door from WWE to AEW, right now, it's hard to imagine anybody has benefited more than Ricochet. At number 2, in my opinion, the top heel in WWE right now, from Bad Blood to present day, it's Kevin Owens. Insane ladder match with Cody Rhodes, where he displayed that he's willing to go to any length to take out somebody that has crossed him in Cody Rhodes. Now, Rhodes went a little bit further, and he pushed the babyface, the quarterback of WWE, further than anybody has pushed him in his WWE title reign until this moment. The character work that Owens has been able to do, the way that he's been able to kind of play the psychopath in this role, where he thinks that everything he's saying is right. And while, yeah, there's some truth to it, he's taking it to another level. The paranoia that he has, saying that everybody's against him, saying that he's the right one, that he's the one that is seeing clearly, and everybody else is clouded. Everybody else is turning their backs on him. That has been very good. Not to mention the fact that the entire heel turn has been predicated on one move. And I understand this is a big topic of conversation for people that are tribalistic between the two companies. But the pile driver, the way that he's been able to build that move, and he's only used it, 4 times since he started this entire story. He used it on Randy Orton, who is still off of TV because of it. He used it on Cody Rhodes at Saturday night's main event 3 times. And he used it on Sami Zayn on Monday Night Raw last week. The way that he's been able to build that up as a, hey, when you've crossed me, this is it. I'm going to put you on the shelf utilizing this move. That, to me, selling that, and the way that they've been able to build him as a heel as quickly as they have, because Bad Blood wasn't at the beginning of last year. That was late last year. And he has turned into the biggest heel in the company, no matter what. I think that has just been so much fun to watch. And he is certainly one of the top heels in wrestling, and definitely, in my opinion, the top heel in WWE. And at number 1, I mentioned there's 2 guys from AEW. To me, nobody has done better work on that side of the pendulum than Hangman Adam Page. He has been booked, and I don't have words to describe this enough, but he has been booked like an absolute monster. The guy burnt down Swerve Strickland's childhood home, or at least in story, burnt down Swerve Strickland's childhood home while sitting on a recliner and drinking a glass of whiskey. And then he started to put it on his intro video. The guy is a menace. The guy is one of the best workers in the industry right now. And then he continues to build off of that by looking as psychotic as he does in ring, and then going after some historic names. Goes after Christopher Daniels, ends Christopher Daniels' in-ring career. And now the sky's the limit for Hangman Page. The only problem with his run right now is that a heel is currently holding the AEW World Championship, because his momentum should be carrying him to the top spot in the company. And he is one of the top names in the company, but it should be carrying him into a title feud. He got in there a little bit when it was him and Jay White and Orange Cassidy, and they were going after Jon Moxley, but it feels like he deserves an individual solos title run at Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. He has been one of the best heels of the last 2 years in professional wrestling. Some of the matches that he's had, the Texas death matches that he's had with Swerve, with Christopher Daniels, have been absolutely phenomenal. The guy is a top heel. He knows how to do this and how to do this at a high level. And because of that, to me, he is the number one heel in pro wrestling today. So that's my top 5. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the graphic pulled up. It's Drew McIntyre at number 5, Logan Paul at number 4, the newest version of Ricochet at number 3, KO Kevin Owens at number 2, and Hangman Adam Page as the top heel in all of pro wrestling. Which, when you look at number 1 and number 3 on that list, you have to give credit to Swerve Strickland. You just do, because getting the best out of your opponent is sometimes the best way to build characters, to build storylines in this industry. Swerve Strickland has now gotten the best out of 2 of these guys. He's gotten the best out of Hangman Adam Page. Everybody loves anytime those two get into a ring, or at least in the vicinity of each other. And now Swerve and Ricochet. It's been one of the best feuds of 2025 so far, and it's building Ricochet's heel persona tenfold. Now, I understand Swerve's not a typical babyface. He just isn't. But he's as over as anyone in AEW, and the fact that he's been able to build heels through his feuds with them, you have to give a lot of credit to Swerve Strickland. Now, I mentioned I have an honorable mention, and I do, because I really like this guy, and I talked about him on my last top 5, which was top 5 wrestlers who deserve a push in WWE in 2025. Honorable mention, Dirty Dom Mysterio. Does anybody like this guy? I mean, outside of Peter Rosenberg, does anybody like this guy? I talked about Logan Paul, and every building he walks into, he gets booed out of the ring. Dominic Mysterio is too. The only difference is Dom isn't doing anything. Dom has effortless heat, and you have to give credit there, because he did so much in 2023 when he was extremely active. He did so much in 2024 where in ring he wasn't active, but storytelling wise, he was on every single episode of Monday Night Raw. And now it feels like he hasn't done very much at all over the last couple of months. And yet when he goes out there to confront AJ Styles, he can barely get a word in because the Nashville, Tennessee crowd is booing him out of the building. Effortless heat. You have to give him credit where credit is due. And I put him in the top 5, but 1, I think my top 5 is a pretty solid group. And 2, I don't think he's prominent enough in the ring right now for me to consider him a top 5 heel. I think because of the way that Drew McIntyre has been in a lot of different storylines in ring, the way that Logan Paul, who doesn't wrestle all that much, but is going to be in a prominent role in Elimination Chamber and then on WrestleMania, I think that's why those guys get the nod over Dominic Mysterio. But I can't talk about heels and not talk about Dirty Dom. So I think that he is an honorable mention to add on to this list of the top heels in pro wrestling today. Let me know in the comment section your top 5